Hey everybody, welcome to another video. Sorry I haven't posted in the last couple of days. I've been really busy working on trying to get some commissions knocked out. Um, it is what it is. Last 2 days I've had to pull all day jobs just to get my other comic done on time for Friday's deadline. So I didn't have a lot of time. It's Friday today, obviously. I'll probably post this maybe the end of the day, or maybe tomorrow morning. I'm not sure. Whatever. But I wanted to get another video out there so you guys don't think I'm just left you hanging. But anyways, I've been working on a Star Trek original series comic, and I've been also just kind of going through all the 70s stuff. And before I get into Star Trek, because that's just a big can of worms too, let's get into another can of worms, which is Batman. So with me personally, and a lot of people who are my age, or close to my age, give or take a year or two, and you grew up you had your early formative years in the 70s, Batman probably was, if not the biggest thing, even into the 70s. I know the show, the original Adam West show, got canceled in the 60s, or only made three seasons. Yeah, 3 seasons in the 60s. Stuff with the 70s, like especially Super Friends, kept him alive. The Mego dolls kept them alive. It was the amount of merchandising of Batman stuff in the 70s. I think it probably isn't, because today's things are just totally out of control. But I would say the 70s did probably give modern day Batman merchandising a run for its money. And obviously there wasn't a lot of, outside of the comic, which there were a lot of comics, obviously starting back in the Golden Age. There were a lot of comics out, but there was also the TV show, which of course, put Batman on the charts, and again, the Super Friends, probably one of the most watched cartoons in the 70s, and of course, this is all, for the most part, and for me too as well, pre-Star Wars. The thing is, when Star Wars hit, it knocked a lot of things out of the limelight for me. It knocked Batman out of the limelight. It knocked things that I just started to get into, like Shogun Warriors, which I still kind of was into, and Micronauts, that type of stuff. Kind of knocked that to the side. It was all about Star Wars in 78. 77, sure, but more 78 and into 79 for me. So it kind of paid, but the thing is, I was into everything. And even when I got into Kiss at the time, everything kind of was just, everything hit me right at that right spot. I would say that kindergarten, and then with my Batman stuff, it's preschool. Now we're going a ways back, and oddly enough, I have very vivid memories of all of it. Sure, I might not remember every detail. I was 3 and 4 when I was really into it, but, and even 5. But I've got pretty, memorable instances with that, especially with the merchandising. I kind of covered this a little bit in my 70s toys, and I kind of covered it here and there. And again, I pulled up a bunch of images and compiled stuff just so we can be on the same page here to know what I'm talking about. But, I think it's funny, though, if you think about it. I was pretty much followed what every other kid at my age followed. Batman, Spider-Man, those are the 2 big superheroes. And Incredible Hulk, I guess, to some degree. The X-Men kind of they were a little obscure at the time, but, definitely Batman, definitely Superman. They had the Superman movie in the 70s, late 70s, I think it was 79 or 78, with Christopher Reeves. Again, I've never been a big Superman fan. I didn't dislike Superman. He just seemed too vanilla for me. And even though I love vanilla, he was just too vanilla. Batman, had the cool costume, had obviously Batman was the car, Batmobile, and that's kind of a no-brainer there, especially for a 70s kid, And, so I kind of followed suit. Everything that you would have liked at that certain age, I was into. And if you take any generation of kid, and what is the dominant, what's the dominant properties that kid would be into at the time, those formative years going into grade school, start kindergarten. What's the average kindergartner today into as far as, IPs? I'm assuming it's still Marvel stuff that's out now, Marvel MCU stuff. Maybe, I don't know, it's kind of maybe falling out of favor with the Marvel. Since it's the MCU, I don't think young boys probably really are watching too much Marvel stuff today. Spider-Man, sure, I guess if they're still catching it. I don't know, I don't, it's weird, right as of now, I don't really know what the main, what's in the zeitgeist for kids nowadays. I mean, my son's 12, so he's kind of, sorry, it's the afternoon and I'm beat again. He's kind of moved on, from that stuff, and he never really was into I kind of pushed him to get into that stuff. And the things that he did like when he was in kindergarten or garden, he probably won't admit to liking nowadays. So yeah, I don't know what a kindergartner is into today. Like I said, I guess with this X-Men thing coming out, maybe they're going to push that for the kids. I don't know. I'm sure Imagine X is still a thing. Power Rangers might be still a thing. I don't know. But anyways, stay on track. Let's go back to Batman. So let's go back to the 70s for me. I think my earliest memory, and of course, let me pull up some visual here. My earliest memory, of course, is the Adam West and Burt Ward Batman TV show in the 60s. It was on, I believe it was on weekday evenings in the 70s, and we were all in the old house on Alice before we moved to the new house on Winry, and I remember we had a TV set sitting there in the living room, and I remember it was on in the evening, and it must have been either before dinner or maybe afternoons before dinner. I don't think it was on after dinner, because I think my dad would have been home by then, and then we'd sit down to eat, and then of course I think Mom would watch TV, and me and my sister would go down in the basement TV, in the little family room area down there and watch stuff, or we would just go play, whatever, go outside. But the after school thing, and this, like I said, this is when I was in preschool, so I would probably have been home at noon. My mom, it's funny, I don't know how I got around back then. I know I went to preschool at a couple of different churches. I know the Congregational Church, that was more of a thing when we moved to Winry. Where did I go to? Somewhere. I know when I was 4, I went to preschool. Oh, you know what I went to? I got a picture of that somewhere. I went to the Board of Education. If you don't know what the Board of Education is, in Rochester, the building's still there because my son passed by it. I think they're in the stages of doing something with it, but it was where my mom originally went to high school until they built the new high school in Rochester, and people like kindergarten or preschool age all the way up to high school, they would go to this one big school, this big cement or big brick building there in Rochester on University Drive or Walton Boulevard. My grandma lived over on Wilcox, so she lived literally, you could see it at the end of the block. And I went there, and we lived in the Alice in the subdivision back there. So I'm assuming my mom. I know we had the one car. I don't think we had 2 cars at the time. So somehow I got from there back to my house in the afternoon. Maybe I walked. I can't believe a 3-year-old would walk that. I mean, it was a kind of a haul to walk. It was probably about 4 or 5 blocks. Somebody must have picked me up. I don't think I took a bus. My mom must have had the car. That's all I can think. Or a neighbor or something. Mrs. Butkins. I remember that neighbor. But anyways, I would go back there, and then I remember my mom would be in the kitchen talking on the phone. She'd be talking on the phone, she'd be cooking, dinner, and I'd be sitting there on the end of the couch and watching the TV set, and they had the Beatles cartoon on, and I wasn't really into the Beatles cartoon, but I'd just watch it because it was on before Batman, and it would they did the it would always seem like it was going to end. Like they'd roll credits after they had like 3 segments in the show. I think it was 3 segments. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. My memory is vague on this because I didn't really care about it. But the Beatles cartoon would show these little small segments, and at the end of each segment, they would have the credits. So you would always think that the show's over, and then you know Batman's starting. But then it would go to the next Beatles segment. Like, ah. So I got it timed. I figured it out. I got into the rhythm. I'm like, okay. That's the first one, boom. That's the second one, boom. That's the third one, boom. And then here we go. It's the end, and then we go right into Batman. And they would play they play the first part, and then when they do the, next time, same bat place, same bat time, it would be the next day. They'd follow them in order. And I would watch those all, every weekday for the most part. I remember them playing them on at night at some certain times, like in prime time. I can't remember when. And I remember catching a couple of them there, but most of them I used to catch right before that Beatles cartoon on weekdays, after preschool or wherever I was at. Babysitter, I don't know. Well, my mom, she was my stay-at-home mom at the time, so I didn't really have a babysitter so much then. Yeah, so that was formative years for me. I don't know if anybody remembers this, let me pull it up here. The costume. So I have also a picture of this somewhere. I don't know if I have it in my picture collection. My mom hasn't given me all of the pictures yet. And she still has a bunch down at her house I have to go through. But there's a picture of me standing out on the front yard of that house on Alice Street, and I'm wearing that costume. And it's funny because they did that in the Venture Brothers when Hank would wear that costume. I was like, hey, it's that costume. And he's doing the thing with, see the slit? He's like, I can't stop sticking my tongue through the slit. It's maddening. That's totally true. I remember just sticking your tongue through that little slit. I had probably 3 different versions of this. I had the main one I wore for Halloween. That would have been Halloween of, I'm going to say it was 77. It had to have been Halloween of 77 because we didn't move into the new house yet. And we didn't move into my grandma's in that interim. So I think it was 77, Halloween of 77, I was this costume for Batman. And had that smell, that plastic smell with the plastic cape. My mom also at the time, she would, kids would always do this too. She'd say, just go get we had towels. You go get a towel and you wrap it around your neck. And you use either a clothespin, which looks stupid because you have the big clothespin. If you were smart, you could find a safety pin, and ask your mom, Mom, safety pin it to me. I remember a neighbor had this real crazy, weird origami wrap-around flippity-flap thing where they put masking tape, like they wrapped it around the neck in this weird tape thing, and then they put a piece of masking tape to hold it in place, and then flipped it over, and you couldn't see the masking tape. They're pretty ingenious. I don't remember going that crazy. And of course, I want a blue towel, or a black towel, or a purple towel. No. I'd have a pink towel with flowers on it, or whatever would be my cape. But you didn't care back then. You run around the yard, flying or do whatever. I mean, Batman didn't fly, but... and then I remember when I got this costume, I didn't wear the costume so much, but I kept the mask and the cape, and I'd put the cape on and the mask, and I'd just run around. That was like my standby Batman dress-up kit. And of course at that time as well, remember most of it's in that house. Most of my memories of Batman are in that house, which is odd. Of course there's these guys, the rack toys. I don't know how many of these I had. I told the story in the other video, but I'll tell it again real quick. My dad's parents lived on Lake Orion, and they lived right on the lake on Bellevue. And they had a little dock, and they had a little area you could kind of swim, I guess, but kind of more just, it would be about this deep on me as a kid. It was probably only about 2.5, 3 feet deep. And I'd go in there, and I'd take those boats, and I'd be riding the boats around, and I'd see the jet boats, because there was jet boats everywhere on that lake. My Rick had Black Magic, which was a really sweet all black jet boat, but it was black like the Batmobile, and it had the red pinstriping all over it. Of course, it was more like a psychedelic, weird kind of 70s, way of pinstriping. It wasn't like the Batmobile specifically, but it was, and it had black carpet on the inside of it. It had this big old jet boat engine sticking out of the back of it, and that thing was just, that thing was a beast. I could see, here comes Uncle Rick. I could see him riding up. I'd be whatever the bat boat. And here comes Uncle Rick, my dad's brother. It looked just like looked like a combination of Barry Gibb and who else? He looked like Barry Gibb mixed with somebody else. He had long hair and mustache. He'd come around and he'd have be wearing just his shorts, and he'd have his beer between his legs. Ride up with the boat. Hey, Tim, you want to go for a ride? My grandma would go, how many beers have you had? Only had 2. All right. You get in the jet boat with Rick. I remember it was like a big deal getting in the boat off the dock, because the dock was out where he would pull up. It was deep. It would just drop off, and there's weeds. He'd pull up there, and I they hold the boat. I remember my grandma holding the boat. My grandma was pretty ornery at the time, but she'd grab the boat and pull over. Of course, she was pissed at my Uncle Rick the whole time. I just love to be a fly on the, well, I guess not on the wall, but fly on the boathouse roof, watching my grandma just see that my Uncle Rick the whole time is I get into a drunk person's boat in a jet boat on a tiny lake where you could literally open the throttle and get from one end to the other lake in like nanoseconds. And I'd get in the boat and he'd fly me around the lake, doing rooster tails, cutting the rooster tails, and like I said, the bat boat. I was just like, I'm in the bat boat. And then I'd just go back and I'd play with my bat boat until another jet boat came by, whipped up a big old wave, and then off went the bat boat somewhere, way out to the neighbors. I'm not going over there, into the neighbors area. And then I have to get another bat boat. Like I said, I had so many of these Batmobile bat boat combinations. I remember buying a lot of them at Chatham, the grocery store. If you remember Chatham that I was telling you about. And then, of course, the Perry Drug Store, Cunningham's. There are a lot of drugstores that aren't around anymore. I used to buy a lot of these. The D&C, the dime store downtown. Before there were dollar stores, there were dime stores. And it was called the D&C. It was this little place downtown. And they had all those rack toys. If you don't know what I mean by rack toys, I pulled up a couple images. So, like, these are some of the Bat Rack toys. You had the different various Batmobiles. With just, I love the artwork on it. It just looks, it's all that old artwork. It just looks awesome. And then they had these guys, which I got a better picture of the Batman one. At least I think I did. Oh, here he is. So there were these. They were the goofiest thing. It was just like a fixed plastic figure with like a, routed out back that you could cover up the cape, and then you would take the little plastic parachute and fold it all up, stick it in there, and you just throw him in the air. And he was weighted enough to where he would catch it, and he would come down. Before that, we'd basically take a handkerchief, like a do-rag handkerchief, and we'd take yarn and then tie it down into just a big, thick, brass or metal washer we get out of the garage. And that would be like our parachutes. This is essentially the same concept, and you throw Batman up there and he'd come down, he'd come down on it. It'd be awesome. The other thing that was out at the time, of course, I talked about these, is the comic action heroes. Now, they had two different styles. They had the ones where they look like they're pooping and he's doing something inappropriate, or they had the ones that were this style, that stand up. It was essentially the same head. It was like a rubber head. You just pop off. And it was essentially the same body. I think they just put different legs on it. Now, I had one of these, and then I ended up getting another one. The first one I got, because I wanted this one. So it was a Batmobile that was very similar to the rack toys, but a little bit better. And the two figures came with it, Batman and Robin. You put them in. Boy, is Robin really getting ready there. Anyways, you put them in there. And away you go, right? Play Batman and Robin. Now, I had the original. Did I save an image of that? Which was with these guys, the little guys that are pooping, little squat guys. I thought I saved a picture of the Batmobile for that. It's the same Batmobile. It has had a different box. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I had this one. Sorry, it's a bad picture of it, but I had this one that you could. Oh no, it came with the. I had a red box though, like this. Oh, you know what? No, the one I had came with Superman too. That's right. So I don't have a picture of it here, but he just came with a Superman. They threw in a Superman for no reason, but probably get another 10 cents out of it. But I had this one, and I remember I loved this toy. I mean, this was like, I mean, action before Star Wars. You had this, and you had Batman and Robin in the Batmobile. I mean, what else could you want? I mean, I would drive it under, the Batcave would be underneath the couch, and you'd come out because we had like this, the couch with the apron on it. So you put them underneath there, and then you come out, and it's like the apron would come up, and the Batmobile would come out. And you'd ride around, and then they'd come out, and I'd have them walking up the side of the coffee table or the side table, to get up there like they do in the show. But these ended up, I don't know if these were first, or I think these might have been first, but they kind of seemed like they also had like a comeback, because this would have been in the 80s. I said to my dad, I said, Dad, we went to a Service Merchandise over by Lakeside Mall, and I had seen this, and I didn't get it, because I don't think I wasn't with my dad. I was with I think a neighbor or something, or maybe I was with my mom and the friends, and I didn't get it. So I said, Dad, can we go to Service Merchandise and see this Batman toy? He's like, you're into Batman again? And I'm like, well, but they have this one that I've been wanting. And he's like, okay. So we went over there, and I remember getting this. That for some reason, they just had a bunch of these left in the early 80s at Service Merchandise, but I ended up getting that one. And then I blew it up, smashed it or whatever, threw it in a river, I don't know. But of course, the other thing, obviously, the mainstays were the Mego dolls. Now, you had Batman and Robin, you had the Joker, you get the Riddler, and then of course you could have the, the Batmobile. Now remember, I never had that Batmobile. I had Batman and Robin the dolls, but I never had the Batmobile. I had a friend that had it. I always wanted it. And again, I was going to buy it in the figure toy company, and I missed my window, and now they're all sold out. So I'm sure companies will make these for time immemorial. Because this stuff's, I think until our generation dies, and like maybe the millennials who don't know about this stuff, I think until that happens, I think they'll keep cranking this stuff out. But I said once my generation goes, it's over. I probably won't do anything more from that. I mean, it's not like we make a lot of. It's not like the toy companies and the boutique toy companies are making a lot of stuff from like my dad's generation or the boomer generation. Maybe, I don't know. I guess not technically. This is still Gen X, because my sister was born in 1965. Now she was the first year of Gen X. 64 would have been the last year of the boomers, and the show was in 66. So, I mean, obviously boomers know about the old cartoon if they grew up with it. If they read it and stuff back in the day, in the golden age of comic books. But in the 60s, this was basically the beginning of Gen X, so that's why it's still fresh with us Gen Xers. And, the stuff was all kind of gone. I think, if anything, all the millennials have the Adam West, the Keaton Batman. And I'll get to the 80s later, because this definitely is going to be a multi-part Batman video, because there's just too much Batman out there to talk about in one video. So I'll get to the 80s with, with superpowers and of course the Dark Knight, Returns by Frank Miller, and the Keaton Batman. And then I guess I'll have to follow it up with the 90s one with the animated series, and then I'll have to follow it up with and then the Nolan Batmans in the 2000s. I mean, it's, Batman today. You just can't get enough Batman. I think Batman, there's more Batman out there, I believe, than Spider-Man. It seems like it is. But those two characters, I mean, since I would say probably since the 60s, because Batman really was put on the map during the 60s, and Spider-Man started in the 60s. I think it's pretty much the 60s on has been two most dominant superheroes have been Batman and Spider-Man. To some degree Superman, to some degree Wonder Woman, to some degree the Hulk, or Captain America, or the X-Men. But by and large, it's primarily Spider-Man, Batman. What else did I want to hit at this time? So, again, kind of once the show kind of, died off, not necessarily died off, but, then we get, of course, the Super Friends, right? So I'm trying to find a good picture. I had a few pictures pulled up for Super Friends. So with the Super Friends, the big thing for me, this one, I watched it always since the Marvin and Wendy. My sister and me would watch this stuff down in the basement in that little room, and I still kept loving the Super Friends, Challenge of the Super Friends, the Marvin and Wendy, and then of course the Wonder Twins. Of course, I loved Wonder Woman at the time, and then Wonder Woman will have her own video because we got Linda Carter Wonder Woman. You've got this Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's in a league of her own. For Batman, to me, like I said, now I know I'm not gonna be a contrarian. I'm not trying to piss in anybody's cornflakes, but to me, the ultimate Batman is the Adam West Batman, followed by the Super Friends Batman, and then followed by, to some extent, the Neal Adams Batman, which is essentially the 70s Batman, the Bronze Age Batman, and then into the early 80s. I've got to say, I enjoyed it when it came out, meaning The Dark Knight, which ushered in the modern age of comics. I enjoyed it when it came out. I was really into it right about between the time it came out and up to the Keaton Batman. And it was just like, it was Dark Knight, it was so cool, it was so gritty and dark. But really, as an adult looking back, and even as a 20-year-old looking back, even back in the 90s, I thought to myself, you know what? I don't really like the Dark Knight. I don't really like dark and gritty Batman. I don't like, I don't like the vigilante. I don't like all the stuff that most people like Batman for. I like Batman for the camp. And I like the, hey, Robin, from Super Friends. To me, that's the definitive Batman. Visually, the definitive Batman is this Batman, the Super Friends Batman / I guess we call it the Bronze Age Batman. I mean, you could argue about the color of his cape, whether it's dark blue, whether it's the lighter blue when they ended up, with as into the Bronze Age with Neal Adams Batman. But I didn't know who Neal Adams was back then. I knew there was Batman comics, and I had a few here and there, but not a lot of them. Oh, another thing forgot to pull up from the 70s was big on color forms, Presto Magic, and coloring books. So I guess that's like and Shrinky Dinks. So that's the crafty stuff, or the artsy stuff, arts and crafts. What do you call it? I would say Holy Trinity, but I guess it's 4. Is coloring book. That's how I learned how to draw. Was from coloring books. I would literally take a coloring book to a page, and I would just take a piece of paper, usually a pizza coupon flipped over, and I would take a pencil, usually not sharp, or if I sharpened it, because we didn't have electric pencil sharpener, sharpened it with a knife, and I would sit there and I would just copy line for line and try to draw exactly what's in the coloring book, because I didn't want to color the coloring book, right? I wanted to save it. This is before Xerox machines were really around. I mean, they're around, but nobody really used them, didn't really know about them yet. So the only way to copy, make it literally a copy to color, was to draw it. And then then I realized I can trace it, right? But the problem with tracing it was, I'd lay the paper, I'd get literal typing paper. I don't remember typing paper, not printer paper, but typing paper, which is thinner and a lot more transparent. I would lay the typing paper over it, and then I would draw the line on it, but I could never see the detail. And then it wasn't, I didn't really know the trick of holding it up to light, but the problem is if you held it up to light like the window or a television set, it would show the other page through it, and I'd get confused on the lines. I did discover tracing paper, but not until the 80s. And when I discovered tracing paper, I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff's amazing. But I didn't know about it back then, so the only way I could do it was to color it, was to do it. We also we had to make plates in what's that called? Preschool. Give us these with white, I can't remember, melamine, I guess was the name of the company, or name of the plastic melamine plates, and they gave us markers. I don't even think I guess Crayola markers were out at that time. I don't remember Crayola. I remember Crayola markers being relatively new. I think we just had like these markers, but they had like permanent markers. They smelled god awful. But I would sit there and I would draw, and I drew Batman and Batman and Robin. I had a Batman and Robin plate that I gave to my parents. And I remember my grandma ended up with it. She had it for the longest time. Speaking of my grandma, there was this weird incident I had. It wasn't an incident, but just this experience I had where I went over to my grandma's house. My mom dropped me off there, and she was watching me for an afternoon, probably in the summer. And she said to me, she goes, somewhere in the house I got a Batman and Robin bendy toy. What do you mean? Somewhere in here is a bendy toy of Batman and Robin. I don't know where it's at. Now I think about it, I think she was just making it up. Because, like I said, when she passed away, me and my mom gutted that house. And I lived there twice in my lifetime. And I went through every room that it could have possibly been, and I cleaned out the entire basement, found all those Sears and JCPenney's catalogs. Not the Christmas catalogs, the catalogs, the thick ones. And I never came across a Batman or Robin bendy, so I'm pretty sure she made it up. But, you're a kid, parents don't lie. And I had her, I was like, let's go upstairs, begging her to go upstairs. I said, she goes, it might be in that one bedroom, which was just literally filled to the ceiling with just junk. And junk back then, too. And we were trying to go through there, and she goes, it's in a box somewhere. And the thing is, I never saw a bendies. I know they exist, and I've seen them come out recently. And I haven't done a good internet search on it, but I don't know if there were bendies then. Batman and Robin bendy. There may have been. But I had never seen them in the store, and my radar was open for anything Batman at the time. I mean, it was a Batman flashlight, or Batman toothbrush holder, which I did have. I was going to pull up a picture of that. It has a clock on it you put your toothbrush, and it has a clock. No, it's a clock. Wait a minute. No, I had a Batman toothbrush and a Batman toothbrush holder in the bathroom, and then I also had a Batman and Robin clock. I don't know if you remember that clock in my room for a while. I don't know what happened to it. So, going back to the Batman TV show, obviously the other thing about the Batman TV show that, tickled my fancy was her. When it's funny, what's his face? Kevin Smith's already stole my mojo here. He says it in one of his things, but it's funny, I kind of giggled when he said it, but then I got, hey, you asshole. That's totally my story. You would sit there and you'd watch Batman, Batman, and then you're waiting, just, because it was all in reruns by the time, so Season 3 was out, and Season 3 was all Batgirl, and you're just, like, sitting there, like, palm sweating, anxiety-ridden, like I said, my 4-year-old heartbeat is just beating, and my 4-year-old blood pressure is like that of like an 80-year-old man. I'm just, or me, because I have high blood pressure. But anyway, just like, and all of a sudden, whoosh, there goes Batgirl. She rides by in the motorcycle, and you're like, yes! You got so excited when it's a Batgirl episode. I was in love with Yvonne Craig back then. Oh my gosh. It's funny, I probably had more, but for the most part, I had three. I fell in love 3 times before I even got out of the 70s. Before I even hit 7 years old, or 8 years old. Wait, when was, let's see, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 6. So in my first 6 years of my life, I had 3 loves of my life. One, of course, was Batgirl. My second one was Wonder Woman, Linda Carter. And my third, of course, is Daisy Duke. So those are my 3 loves of my life back in the 70s when I was a little kid. But yeah, I was so enamored with Batgirl. Every time she was on the screen, I was just like, jaw dropped. You know, you're 4 or 5 years old. You don't know what to really make of that. You don't know why that is, but you're just enamored with her. Even my mom's like, "Going up, Tim's watching Batgirl again." Yeah, I mean, in the costume, out of the costume, when she had the library, you know, she had the beehive hair and the glass. Oh my lord! Yeah, I was in love with Batgirl. And I didn't really know who Yvonne Craig was until later on, but I didn't know she was the Green Girl, the Green Orion slave girl from Star Trek until I was, a young adult. But yeah, that was the other thing about the show was, yeah, definitely Batgirl. And that cool motorcycle. I mean, it wasn't cool because it was pretty girly, but it was still a motorcycle, and it was the 70s, and I just thought that was cool. This girl driving with this costume, driving on this motorcycle, I was like, oh, that's so cool. I guess hot would have been what I would have said after puberty. Before puberty was just cool. Cool and but a different kind of cool. not like a Batman, not like a Batman Batmobile kind of cool, like another kind of cool, but I don't know what that means yet. And then of course, when the show did, from Super Friends, they ended up making the New Adventures of Batman, which was not that great of a show, but it had Batgirl in my favorite Batgirl costume, as far as the comic books go. I love the gray costumes. Now, I guess, should I mention anything else, or should I just dive right in? Oh, one other thing I want to mention before I dive into to McFarlane is this. Now, I got this, I wanted this forever, and I finally ended up getting it. They had a Spider-Man version of this, too, if you don't remember. This was a 12-inch doll, 12-inch doll of Batman. And he just looked meaner. Like his face looked more evil. You can see it there. His face, he just looked meaner. I guess was the best way, more aggressive. And he also had magnets, and he had better gloves and better boots. That's the other thing I noticed, because the other toy this one had some pretty sketchy, sus, my son would say, accessories. But anyways, this Batman doll came out, and it's like it clings to any steel surface. You could walk up the I guess everybody's going to walk up the refrigerator at one time. If it's Sucker Man, or if it's a magnetic Batman or Spider-Man, they're going to walk up the line. There was a 12-inch Spider-Man doll out that I did have. I don't know if you ever watched this after-school special. I got to do a Spider-Man episode too. But they had an after-school special with Spider-Man, and there's the kid who's, I think his brother was like, I don't want to say, mentally challenged, or what we normally call kids back then. But let's just say he had special needs, right? And he because he was scared of it, and the other son liked it, and his brother liked it, and then the kid ended up putting it in the oven and cooking it. That episode, that after-school special, gave me nightmares. I was just seeing him cooked that Spider-Man doll, and he's all melted. I don't know if anybody ever saw that back then, but it was like trauma to me. It was like, oh my god. So there was that doll, but I'm pretty sure I know there was an Energized Spider-Man. Again, we'll get into Energized Spider-Man, the Spider-Man video, but I'm pretty sure there was a magnetic Spider-Man. Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys know, let me know. Tell me if you had the magnetic Spider-Man, or you just had the 12-inch doll, the one that got baked in the oven, outside of the Mego doll. But anyways, I had this one. I've wanted this forever, and I ended up finally getting it. I think we got it at KB Toy Store in Lakeside. Because, again, it was kind of hard. Stuff wasn't necessarily hard to find, but it just seems like my normal haunts, my KB, sorry, Kittyland and Kmart, which is the two local stores, and of course KB up in Meadowbrook Mall. I think this is before JK opened up in Winchester. They might have had a toy store before that, I don't remember it, but normally we just go to Kmart. You know, going out to Lakeside Mall was a treat. We didn't always go out there, so, you know, going out to there, you know, to get something like this was like, oh, they're going to have it out there. They got to have it out there. We got a KB in Meadowbrook Mall. I'm sure they had it too, but anyways. It's how you thought as a kid. You're just like, wherever you go, it's farther away. They're the people that must have the thing you're looking for. That was my mentality as a kid. I just want to talk another rack toy. It was this motorcycle. Oh, God, I wanted this motorcycle. And then I finally ended up getting him at wherever. Whether there's Kmart or Kresge's or something. And you pull him back, and it was, you know, the spring-loaded one. You pull it back, and then you just go flying across the kitchen floor. Cat would end up chasing after. Man, times are so much fun back then. Okay, let's get into McFarlane. So, first thing we're gonna cover with McFarlane. And I should. There was a Batman TV show, Batman series action figures that came out like in the 2000s. I don't remember that. And they had a really nice Batmobile. And then they had the figures. I never jumped on that because I was married at the time, and my wife, you know, forbid me to be happy. So, anyways, I couldn't have nice things. So I didn't get it, and then by the time I ended up getting divorced, I went back to look for it. And I think they did still have it on Toys R Us, like in 2013. But again, I was like, should I buy it? I don't know. You know, money was tight after the divorce. Money's always tight, but money was tight then too. So I never got it. And then they came out with the small version of it. I remember Meyer had a bunch of those figures. And again, I was going to buy them, never ended up buying them. I keep, you know, holding off. And then McFarlane comes out with it. McFarlane, 66 Batman toys. They had this cool Batcave playset. They had a Batmobile. I was ready to go. As soon as it was up for pre-order, I was ready to hit the button. I was like, I'm all in on this. Not going to miss it again. And then it comes out, and then they start talking about how Batman and Robin don't fit. As you can see, their heads are over the thing. Now, granted, we're coming from the days of this, right? So, I guess it really shouldn't matter to me that their heads are popped over, right? But for some reason, that got into my head, and it just tainted me to it. And then I started seeing the figures come out, and I saw the playset. I could have bought them multiple times over. I saw them at Target everywhere. And I just like, I guess I'm not going to get into it. And I resigned myself to, it's like, you know what, I guess I'm just not going to get into the toys. Then I was going to get into the Mego copies for the Figure Toy Company. And again, I just hesitated, because I was collecting too many things at the time. Same thing with that too, and it all slipped through my fingers. So these are coming out, or I don't know if they're out yet, but they have the New Adventures of Batman, and I was ready to go into all this, and I still may. I'm not a big fan of Batmite, but I want that Batgirl. That's a great Batgirl figure. I always wanted that. I wanted that Batgirl. The Batman and Robin are nice. Joker's nice. He was pink for some reason in the TV show. I don't know why, but that's fine. And then they had a Commissioner Gordon. Actually, he comes with Batmite. I always thought it was Alfred, but it's Commissioner Gordon. So again, I was ready. I'm ready to jump on all these, but again, I think now I don't have any more room for any of this stuff, and I don't need these. Are they cool? Yes. Would I love to have all... If you said to me, hey, Tim... I know I'm speaking in the third person. I don't like to do that normally. But anyways, he said, hey, Tim, you could have, this, You could have these. You could have this. You could have a costume. You could have all this stuff, you know, the rack toys. You could have all of it like you had back in the day. And even the stuff that you didn't have. Like, I never had the Bat Cave. I never got the Bat Cave for the Mego dolls. I always wanted it. I wanted the Batmobile. I never got that either. You could have it all, right? For free. Yeah, you won it in the sweeps. You won the lottery, and they're going to give you nothing but all the Batman toys from the 70s. I don't have anywhere to put it? Sure, I'd take it. Yes, of course, if it's free. But I mean, like I said, these last few acquisitions I have here, it's just like I'm really kind of like scratching my head where to put things. So, and here's the thing. I love looking at this stuff, and I love thinking about it, and I love reminiscing of the days of old, the thrilling days of yesteryear, as it were. And like I said, I'm trying to put down as much of this information as I can on some type of archive or video, so I can, you know, when I lose my memory, I can go back and watch it and remember. But you know, and I like to share all this stuff and talk about it with other people, which is what I'm encouraging people to do. By the way, now is a good time to like and subscribe. Yeah, sorry, let me. I'm going to get into my soapbox mode here, my whatever, ranting mode, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I think that there's too much Batman stuff out there. I love Batman. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not... All the stories I've just told you, I mean, you know, it's been ingrained in me at a very young age. And again, I was there for the Dark Knight. You know, I don't like it really that much anymore. But I was there with the animated show. You know, I basically, outside of living in 1966, I was there for all of Batman, for the most part. I mean, the Golden Age of comics, no. 1966 show, and then that creepy show that came out before that, no, I wasn't alive when it came out. But shortly thereafter, just a few years after that show went off the air, you know, I was there from the beginning. And so I love, you know, it's in my DNA. I love Batman. Love the Batman and Robin concept. Love the Batmobile. Love the Batcave. Love it all. Love it all. Not a huge Joker fan. I've always was more of a Riddler fan for me, or Catwoman. I haven't even got into Catwoman, but just a sidebar in Catwoman. I'll piss off people with this one too. I'm not a big fan of Julie Newmar. I thought she looked weird. I didn't really like her hips. Her hips looked strange. Her hip bones look weird. I didn't really like Julie Newmar Catwoman. I wasn't a big Eartha Kitt fan either. I just always thought Eartha Kitt and Uhura were the same person as a kid. And Diana Ross. I always thought those three people were the same people. And I only saw her, obviously, once because of the movie, I like Lee Merriweather. And I didn't know that then. You know, because like I said, my heart was out for Batgirl at the time when I was young. But as I watched, like right around the time I started rewatching all the Batman stuff, like prepping for the Keaton Batman to come out in 1989, I saw the Batman movie, and I was like, did I ever see this? I must have seen this when I was a kid. But I saw the Batman movie, and I mean, I still was technically a kid, but I was a little kid. But I saw it, and I was like, well, wow, Lee Merriweather is hot. I really like Lee. I thought Lee Merriweather, she's just the best looking of all three Catwomen. But, you know, obviously people love Julie Newmar. You know, thanks for everything, Julie Newmar. Well, anyways, so, yeah, everybody loves Julie Newmar, and I don't dislike her, but I always thought she just looked weird. Like, I didn't get, her hips looked weird, and she just had, like, a weird kind of way she acted. I wasn't a big fan of her voice. I didn't like the Eartha Kitt either, doing the I didn't like, I don't know, I didn't like the meow part. I didn't like the cat. I wasn't a cat person, even when we had a cat back then. I really didn't like cats. I don't dislike cats today, but I mean, I just really wasn't into cats. So the cat thing just kind of lost on me. To me, it was just a girl in, like, black leather jumpsuit, which I don't even know if it was leather. It was, like, sparkly, weird material, which which also I wasn't a big fan of that either. It just looked weird. Although, What's-Her-Face had it too, Batgirl. But maybe I like the purple better. I don't know what it was. But they do have, McFarlane does have, sorry. I got going off on another tangent here. Let me go grab this real quick. So, they do have the Batgirl, and of course they're tiny pictures. Why would they not be? Yeah, you can't even see it that good. So, McFarlane does a Target exclusive with the Batgirl. I can't get her now. And the thing is, I guess they don't have own the likeness of Yvonne Craig, so they couldn't make her look like Yvonne Craig. But between that figure and that figure, I mean, those are my two favorite versions of Batgirl. Which one do I like better? To me, they're separate. It's like Batman. I mean, his costume in the show and his gray costume I associate with the same character, but which one do I like better? I couldn't tell you, because they're two. One's live action, one's cartoon or comic. For me, it's more cartoon. But another thing, these things came out, or was it these? No, I thought there was the action figures. They had a really cool Super Friends action figure set that came out a long time ago. Never jumped on that either. You can't buy everything, and like I said, I'm kind of weaning myself off of buying all this crap. But I love looking at it, and I love thinking about it, and I love, reminiscing about it and talking about it. But do I have to have it? I'm not going to play with it. It's just like all these other figures, they're just going to sit here and staring at me, collecting dust and taking up space. So, I don't know. I think I might be done with the toy collecting. Sorry to those people who are all into the toys and watching me for the toy videos, which I'm not. It's not like I'm done talking about it. I still have plenty more to talk about when it comes to the toys. But I don't necessarily have to have this stuff. I can talk about it by just looking at pictures. I thought this too back in maybe 15 years ago. I was just like, I'm just gonna, and I'm kind of doing it, still doing it now. It's like, I just want to compile high-res photographs of all this stuff, just so I can keep it in my visual, archives. I can just pull it up and look at it. Sure, it's nice to have the thing, smell the plastic, set it somewhere, play with it, if you will. But as I just said, I need to start putting my money towards more important things, and I don't know what those more important things are at the moment. Yeah, I think I'm hitting the brakes on a lot of collecting stuff. I'll definitely get the rest of these if they ever come out with these Dungeons and Dragons figures. Kind of committed to that. Am I gonna get the rest of the Kiss dolls? I don't know. You can get the Batman Mego dolls and stuff now. You can get the Figure Toy Company doll versions of it. I don't know. It's also expensive too. I mean, $20. I know the stuff, you got to think of inflation, blah blah blah. But I mean, it was expensive then. I mean, even it was cheaper. It was expensive then. Even my parents, my dad literally spoiled the shit out of me by buying me a lot of this stuff. At a young age, getting me all those Batmobiles and all these little figures and stuff, and all the rack toys and stuff. I mean, even if they're just a couple of bucks, I mean, it's to mention today, going to the counter, to get your liquor, and your son wants more than a candy bar. Your son wants hey, I don't just want a whatchamacallit. I loved whatchamacallits when they came out. I want here, can you buy me this $15 thing or $10 thing? I mean, that's essentially what it would be like back then. It's just like, yeah, we're not doing that every time we go to the store. Luckily, I don't go to the store that often. But yeah, it stuff adds up. Like I said, it takes up space, and sure, it's a collection, and there's always the speculation. Hey, this stuff might be worth something someday. Or maybe it's still worth something now and you want to sell it. But I mean, buying it as an investment has never been my top priority. Whether it comes to comics, you name it, whatever I've been into, my whole point is I wanted it to be happy. I wanted to make me happy. I wanted to fill my empty void in my soul with stuff. And ever since a young kid, like I said, I'm a Gen Xer. We were ingrained consumerism, and that created a vortex, in your being, in your id, and therefore it needs to be constantly filled for something, or it'll go into cardiac arrest. So, there's always that to consider as well. But all right, hope you enjoyed my little foray on the Batman. Kind of tell you my experience with the Batman. And there'll be more. Like I said, there's more Batmans to cover. I want to do a Spider-Man episode. I want to do a, I guess I don't really need the Super Friends per se, but definitely a Spider-Man. Definitely a, who did I mention? Sorry, I'm losing my mind already. Spider-Man. We'll do a Wonder Woman episode. I guess we'll still talk about that. Super Friends with Wonder Woman. We'll talk about Linda Carter. And eventually I'm going to end up doing a Duke Boys video. But we're going to cover all of the, I guess, it's like the toys that made us or the movies that made us. This is the shit that made me. So there we go. That's my version of the show, is the shit that made me. Alright. Catch you on the next video. Sorry about the pause. Like I said, just been really busy getting back to it. Probably make another one tomorrow. Might do the Spider-Man episode tomorrow. Maybe we'll just do it back-to-back or there. Alright, I will talk to you then. Alright, bye-bye.